The summer of 2024 to 2025 will be etched in Australia's memory as one of unprecedented heat. It was a season that tested the resilience of both the land and its people, pushing them to their limits and beyond. From the sun-baked plains to the coastal cities, the nation sweltered under an unrelenting sun. The heat was inescapable, permeating every aspect of daily life. Air conditioners hummed incessantly, and the streets were often deserted during the peak hours of the day. Temperatures soared to record highs, shattering previous benchmarks and pushing the limits of human endurance. In some areas, the mercury climbed to levels never before recorded, leaving meteorologists and climate scientists astounded. The elderly and vulnerable were particularly at risk, with hospitals reporting a surge in heat-related illnesses. This was not just another hot summer, it was a stark and alarming glimpse into a future shaped by a changing climate. The relentless heat wave served as a wake-up call, highlighting the urgent need for action to address the root causes of global warming. The consequences of this extreme heat were felt far and wide. Wildlife struggled to find shade and water, with many species facing unprecedented stress. In urban areas, the demand for electricity soared as people relied heavily on air conditioning to stay cool, leading to power outages in some regions. Wildfires raged across the country, fueled by tinder-dry vegetation and driven by fierce winds. These fires were more intense and widespread than in previous years, devastating large swaths of forest and threatening homes and communities. Firefighters worked tirelessly, often in grueling conditions, to contain the blazes and protect lives and property. Drought tightened its grip on vast swaths of land, parching the earth and decimating crops. Farmers faced an uphill battle to keep their livelihoods afloat, with many losing entire harvests to the relentless dry spell. The economic impact was profound, affecting not just the agricultural sector but the entire supply chain. The very fabric of Australia's environment and way of life was tested as never before. Communities came together to support one another, sharing resources and offering assistance to those hardest hit. The spirit of resilience and solidarity was evident, but so too was the recognition that more needed to be done to prepare for the future. This summer's events served as a potent reminder of the growing threat of climate change. The patterns of extreme weather were no longer anomalies but part of a disturbing trend that scientists had long warned about. The urgency of addressing climate change became more apparent than ever. The link between rising global temperatures and the increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather events is now undeniable. Glaciers continued to melt at alarming rates and temperature maps showed a clear upward trend over the years. The evidence was irrefutable, and the call to action could no longer be ignored. As we confront the reality of a warming planet, it is imperative that we act decisively to mitigate its worst effects and build a more sustainable future. Renewable energy projects and community initiatives for sustainability gained momentum, offering hope and a path forward. The choices we make today will determine the legacy we leave for future generations, and it is our responsibility to ensure that legacy is one of resilience, innovation, and stewardship of our precious planet. The Bureau of Meteorology painted a stark picture of the summer's extreme heat. This season has been unlike any other, with temperatures reaching unprecedented levels and breaking numerous records. Average temperatures soared well above the long-term average, creating a sweltering environment that affected millions. The relentless heat waves have become a defining feature of this summer, leaving many struggling to cope. With many regions experiencing their hottest summer on record, the impact has been felt far and wide. Communities have had to adapt to the extreme conditions, seeking shade and hydration to stay safe. In some areas, the mercury climbed to unprecedented heights, exceeding 50 degrees Celsius, that's 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Such extreme temperatures have never been recorded before, highlighting the severity of the current climate situation. Cities and towns across the country sweltered through prolonged heat waves, with urban areas particularly hard hit. The concrete and asphalt of cityscapes absorbed and retained heat, making the situation even more unbearable for residents. With temperatures remaining dangerously high for days, even weeks on end, the prolonged heat waves have tested the resilience of both people and infrastructure. The continuous exposure to such extreme heat has had significant health and economic impacts. Records for the number of consecutive days above certain temperature thresholds were broken time and again. This relentless pattern of extreme heat has set new benchmarks for what constitutes a heat wave in Australia. The relentless heat put immense strain on infrastructure, caused widespread power outages, and pushed healthcare systems to their limits. Hospitals have been overwhelmed by heat-related illnesses, and the demand for electricity has surged as people try to cool their homes. These record-breaking temperatures were not isolated incidents. They were part of a broader pattern of extreme weather events that have become more frequent and intense in recent years. They were part of a clear and alarming trend of rising temperatures across Australia and the globe. Scientists have been warning about the consequences of global warming for decades, and now we are witnessing those predictions come to fruition. The science is unequivocal. Human activities, particularly the burning of fossil fuels, are releasing greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, trapping heat and causing the planet to warm. This has led to more frequent and severe heat waves, which are just one of the many impacts of climate change. To combat this growing crisis, there is an urgent need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and transition to renewable energy sources. Solar panels, wind turbines, and other sustainable technologies offer a path forward, but significant action is required from governments, businesses, and individuals alike. In the meantime, communities are finding ways to stay cool and protect themselves from the heat. Public cooling centers have been set up, and people are relying on fans and air conditioning to get through the hottest days. Environmental activists are calling for immediate action to address climate change and prevent future heat waves from becoming even more severe. Their message is clear: the time to act is now, before it's too late. Despite the challenges, there is hope for a better future. By taking decisive action today, we can create a world where extreme heat waves are a thing of the past, and future generations can enjoy a stable and healthy climate. The scorching temperatures and prolonged lack of rainfall created a tinderbox-like environment across much of Australia, setting the stage for one of the worst bushfire seasons in history. The relentless sun beat down on the land, baking the soil and vegetation to a crisp. The air was thick with the smell of dry earth and the ominous sense of impending disaster. From the forests of the east coast to the bushland of the west, wildfires raged out of control, fueled by an abundance of dry vegetation and driven by strong winds. The flames leaped from tree to tree, consuming everything in their path. Firefighters worked tirelessly, often for days on end, to contain the infernos, but the sheer scale and intensity of the fires made their task nearly impossible. The sky turned an eerie orange, and the sun was often obscured by thick plumes of smoke. Millions of hectares of land were consumed by flames, destroying homes, businesses, and critical infrastructure. Entire communities were reduced to ashes, and the landscape was left scarred and blackened. The loss of wildlife was staggering, with countless animals perishing in the flames or losing their habitats. The aftermath of the fires revealed a haunting scene of devastation, with charred remains of buildings and forests stretching as far as the eye could see. The human toll was devastating, with lives lost and countless others displaced. Families were forced to flee their homes with little more than the clothes on their backs, seeking refuge in emergency shelters. The emotional trauma of losing everything weighed heavily on those affected, and the road to recovery seemed long and uncertain. Communities came together to support one another, but the scars left by the fires would take years to heal. The economic impact was equally profound, with billions of dollars in damages and lost productivity. Businesses that had been the lifeblood of small towns were gone, leaving owners and employees without a source of income. The cost of rebuilding was staggering, and many wondered if they would ever be able to recover. Insurance claims skyrocketed, and the financial strain was felt across the country. Drought, the silent killer, tightened its grip on the country. The lack of rainfall not only fueled the fires but also led to a severe water crisis. Farmlands turned to dust, and the once fertile soil became barren and unyielding. The drought affected every aspect of life, from agriculture to daily living, and the sense of desperation grew with each passing day. Rivers and dams dwindled to alarmingly low levels, forcing communities to implement severe water restrictions. Water became a precious commodity, and people were forced to make difficult choices about how to use the limited supply. Community meetings were held to discuss the crisis, and the sense of urgency was palpable. The sight of nearly empty reservoirs and trickling rivers was a stark reminder of the severity of the situation. Farmers faced the heartbreaking prospect of watching their crops wither and die, while livestock perished from thirst and starvation. The agricultural sector, which had been the backbone of the economy, was brought to its knees. The sight of withered crops and dead livestock was a common one, and the sense of loss was overwhelming. Farmers worked tirelessly to save what they could, but the relentless drought left little hope. The social and economic consequences of the drought were far-reaching, impacting livelihoods and communities across the country. Rural towns that had once thrived were now struggling to survive. The economic hardship was evident in the abandoned farms and empty storefronts. The sense of community remained strong, but the challenges were immense. The drought had not only taken a toll on the land but also on the spirit of the people who called it home. The extreme weather events that ravaged Australia during the summer of 2024 to 2025 were not random occurrences but rather a stark warning. They were a clear and present manifestation of a changing climate, a consequence of human actions that have significantly altered the delicate balance of our planet's atmosphere. The Earth's climate is changing at an unprecedented rate, driven primarily by the relentless burning of fossil fuels, which releases greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. These gases trap heat, causing the planet to warm and disrupting the natural systems that regulate our climate, leading to severe consequences. As the planet warms, we can expect to see more frequent and intense heat waves, prolonged droughts, and other extreme weather events. These events will have profound impacts on our environment, our economies, and our way of life, altering them forever. The time for action is now, before it's too late.